but I also don't think you can make decisions based on these veteran players keeping them happy at the expense of young players developing. For example, you talk about Kodi Burns. He's a young guy. He's worked well with the young guys, but I think that's a good indicator that he maybe lost control of that room.
Yeah, that was one element. And I know we talked about, some of the coaching on the offensive side of the football. I didn't think the wide receiver room was an issue. The only issue for me has been Michael Thomas and the lack of health. And sadly, we got to see him a little longer than I thought, honestly, this season. But in the end, there was the same old Mike T issue.
Yeah, and a lot of these firings are, a lot of these decisions are going to come out of what went wrong this past season and why, when those cracks showed, why were those cracks there? With Mike, it's just like, I'm tired of it personally. I'm tired of having to go on Twitter and try to interpret what the hell he's talking about.
I'm Shazamming lyrics to see if that's what it is.
Well, and clearly he doesn't care in terms of he's willing to just say anything at any time, regardless of what the impact of it might be or like the interpretation of it might be. Because it's not like he's saying he's saying these vague things and forcing you to interpret them for him. And it's like, well, maybe he's just tweeting a Nipsey Hussle lyric, or maybe he's actually directing this specifically at one person. And I don't know, maybe he's upset that they fired Kodi Burns, but the timing of it would have come out and said like around the same time as like Kodi might've been texting his receiver saying, I'm leaving, I'm out of a job. So maybe, I don't know, maybe that's what it is. Maybe he's saying that he really likes Kodi. But I don't know. That's the annoying thing. And he deactivated his Twitter account prior to the end of the season. It would not shock me at all if there is some sort of social media clause in these contracts that says you have to behave yourself on social media, or we can, or we can, fine you or whatever. Because I don't think it's a coincidence that immediately after that kind of tirade during the Lions game, he deactivated his Twitter, and then, I don't know, days after the season ended. Like, I don't know exactly when it came back, but it was like a matter of hours following the end of the regular season for the Saints. And suddenly his account was back online and he's back tweeting stuff that's like questionably about people that you're talking. So I don't know. Like, I think that there was a level to which the locker room itself was kind of fracturing, and he was not a productive part of that in terms of making sure everyone is on the same page. That's the kindest way I can put it, is that there were players in the room who were trying to go out and win games, and they succeeded toward the end of the season. And there were not players necessarily committed to that. And I think like when you look, it's like, okay, why do we need to reshuffle things? Why do we need to start fresh in a lot of ways? I think that's what you're looking at is how that situation devolved. And what frustrates me with Mike is, and this is kind of leading into the next segment, we're going to talk about free agents, is this team is bent over backwards for this man. Like, I understand the frustration, and I understand that the things weren't going a certain way, and you want to vent, you want to do whatever. But like, how many games has he played the last 3 years? Right? How much are you supposed to cater to one person?
Yeah, to me, it's been a whole weird situation, just because you hear the stories about, misdiagnosis of injuries, and is that something?
See, I don't put that on him, but yeah.
But I'm saying, is he blaming the team on that? So there's that kind of bitterness there, and I don't know. Mike definitely was someone who does not like talking to the media, but I'm with you in the fact that I'm tired of your cryptic messages, and just tell me what you really mean. I don't want to like try and diagnose and figure out exactly what you're talking about in each tweet.
I think Mike is a guy who will ride or die for the guys he supports in the locker room. And I think that's a majority of the players. Like, I think that he's not a guy who's going to be a bad teammate to you specifically, but he is a guy who's going to undermine the coaching staff. And I think that's what was happening. And like, because, like he and Chris Olave are close. Like, I think like there's so many Ohio State guys in this locker room, right? Like,
right.
He's never going to be the guy who snipes at his teammates, or at least not, Derek Carr notwithstanding, right? Like, I think that's kind of where it is. It's like, but you have to be either, I think you're 100% in or you're 100% out, at least publicly. Right. And when it starts to be the case of like, you're you're negotiating stuff through social media of things that you believe in, it's like, that's got to be in the locker room, bud. And if it's not, it's like, whether I agree with what you're saying or not, it's on you, because you have turned this into a circus. And that's why it's frustrating, just because like they could have cut, like, I don't know, like we get into, and we're going to get into this next segment, but it comes back to this idea of like, what is the downside to renegotiating all these contracts and restructuring all these contracts and pushing them down the road? Well, you get into this scenario where probably should have moved on from Mike Thomas after last season. Heck, you probably should have done it 2 seasons ago. But because of the way the contracts are structured, the conversation is no longer just, does it make sense to bring this guy back? It is, does it make sense to bring this guy back at the cost of this?
Right.
And I think that's where you are with Mike Thomas, because I just don't think he was ever fully on board with this coaching staff for, and he's mercurial, and a lot of these wide receivers are mercurial, right? Like, you remember in the preseason where he's saying, thank you, Jesus, because they signed Derek Carr. But I think like
here quick.
Yeah. And so this is all kind of just lumped into the Kodi Burns part of it of like, I think controlling the situation and keeping things on track is a big part of a position coach, right? Like, that's part of your job. There's development, there's install, there's game plan, but then there's also just, managing people and leading a group. And in the end, I think that's probably what you're looking at in terms of the wide receiver room is like, it just didn't go well enough of the time.